YouTube land. This is Brent and Son coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Here recently, we've had several pterodactyl sightings, and I've made a couple videos on this. The guy from New Jersey, the guy from Texas, and then I had a small story at the end of a video of a pterodactyl sighting by a beaver pond. They didn't really give the location. And then there's been a bunch of different comments. So it really is something that I didn't ever plan on covering. And I didn't really even know anything about this except hearing the occasional story that I didn't really know if it was true or not. But the stories are kind of adding up, and it's got me convinced that people are seeing something because the descriptions are way too good. And I know that it's quite it's insulting sometimes when someone tells you that's not what you saw when you know what you saw. I've never seen a cat and said, oh, maybe it was a dog. I never saw a horse and said, oh, it might have been a cow. That's ridiculous. It's because some of the details people give, like the Jersey guys, they told of this, they described the skin of it. They described the shape of the head down to even the structure on the back of the head, and way too much detail, and they were very close to it in that particular case, and the color of it, and so on and so forth. And these rivers keep popping up. So anyway, this guy's got some information with his sightings that might even shed a little bit of light on this theory that I've been saying, that I think they live near rivers. And you'll just have to hear his encounter, and I won't make you wait any longer. But he's going to go by Joshua, and
Yep.
and he's from Michigan. So I'm just going to call him Joshua from Michigan, and he can tell you what area he lives in, as far as he wants to narrow down his location and what he was doing, things like that. But hello, Joshua. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on, and hello, YouTubers and everybody interested in the subject.
Yeah.
And then I want to make a shout out to David as well before we get started, because he inspired me through the interview you had with him recently, or something, of a pterodactyl sighting in Texas. Well, thanks, David, for inspiring me to come out of the closet with my story.
All right, I'm sure he'll be glad to hear that. You need to watch the Jersey guys story too, because it's fascinating.
Yeah, I really haven't watched too much. It was just 2 days ago, I believe, I come across your video and seen it was with David. So I've been checking into it, seen a couple, but I'm going to make sure I get all the pterodactyl ones down. And now that I got an outlet source to talk about this.
Right.
So.
And for all the viewers out there too, there is a playlist on the channel. If you go to the channel, it's big. Basically, I grouped all the cryptids together. Bigfoot, Dogman, and other cryptids is what the playlist is, and it's got every chupacabra to whatever, and all in that one list. And the pterodactyl stories are in that list, and this story will also be there. So if you would, Jonathan, why don't you kind of take us back to maybe what you were doing in the area, and kind of bring us through the first sighting, and bring us through to the second, explain in sequence there the encounters and even the bridge thing, and give us kind of idea what you've encountered here.
Okay, sounds good. Well, it goes back about 18 months ago, and me and my daughter, or my fiance's daughter, was going to make like a collage of pebbles glued to a frame. And so we went out to this trail and rode our bikes down a trail and picked a spot in the river, right? It was about a half mile from our house. This was 18 months ago, and we picked some pebbles out of like a spot of where this water fed into the river, like a creek or something. And we noticed there was a lot of sand and pebbles and pretty stones, so we picked them out, glued them to a picture frame, put her picture in it or whatever, and it was pretty cool, father-daughter, thing to do. And that got me inspired into looking for rocks, because some of the minerals that I found, I thought I found gold. And it ended up being pyrite, or this mica, or whatever it's called. But nonetheless, it got me going to that area, and I was into fishing and whatnot. Lived here my whole life in Lower Michigan. So fast forward about 6 months from the 18 months, which brings us to about a year ago. I took my old lady out there, and which is my fiance, and at this point, I got about 3 months under my belt because I found a couple fossils, which are called crinoids. Now, these crinoids are from 540 million years ago, and they're found throughout Michigan. But I found a couple ones in particular that, like, glittered, you know what I mean? And I thought I was onto something, so I kept pursuing it. And my job with cutting trees allows me a lot of time off. I make good money, work 3-4 days a week. And I really thought I discovered, you know, these minerals that were being found, you know, and wished I would went to school for it. I didn't know I liked it so much. So my old lady, I was trying to get her into it, and you know, I would give her jasper and agates that I found there, and common potassium stones that they say you can only find in the Upper Peninsula, and I'm finding them the size of a $50. So I talked her into going with me a couple times. So around the third time she went with me, I had some things that I wanted to get that I left there in the day. So we went about an hour before dark, which is around 9 o'clock, and it got dark about 9:30. So we were supposed to have left and before dark, and it ended up staying. So in this part of the river, in order to get out of the muddy part into the sandbar where I was digging, you know, the river is pretty wide. And there's a couple sandbars, so I have to walk through the river to get to the sandbar. And I needed her to hold the flashlight. So she's standing on the shore, and there's nobody around other than like a bike trail. And but we're like off in the woods, and this is a portion of the river where there's nothing for about 10 miles, and just like a trail that you can ride your bikes and whatnot. And so we hear some noises, and it was almost like, in the beginning, it was just weird noise. And then there was like a rustling in the trees, you know, and she kept shining the light up in the trees. And I was like, honey, you know, I need the light right here in the water. And what it was I was trying to dig out was, it's like limestone with crinoid, it's called a crinoid plate. And I was trying to get it out of the water. And I'm like, honey, I need the light. Quit shining, you know, in the woods. Don't worry about it. Have faith, you know, because we're both believe in God, you know. And but I was actually feeling shook because it was like a gargling noise and rustling around in the trees, and you could look up, and about 120 feet, you know, across from us, which would have been the span of the river, you could see the trees moving, and I recognized myself that this is too much movement going on. It's like something powerful is in that tree, and the gurgling noise didn't make sense. But it wasn't too definitive that you could call it gurgling, but gurgling came up in my mind almost immediately, but I didn't mention it, you know. And she's like, "That's something ain't right." So literally 4 times I asked her to keep the light on me, and I felt bad for kind of yelling at her, you know, and she was spooked. And so we was already overdone, and we left. And that was the first encounter of something different, because the second encounter was at the same spot. Okay, so March of this year, that was about 12 months ago. So when that happened with my fiance, the second time it happened was about 6 months ago. So now I got a year into looking for these specimens. And I'm out there at the same location by myself. My old lady's working, you know, and I'm out there, and been there, I would say about 8 o'clock at night, and around 11 o'clock at night, I got this little headlamp that I have on. I walked from one portion of the track down to the portion where me and her was at. Now, as I go out into the water and go to the same location where me and her heard the noises, and she was shining in the trees, and we could see the movement, hear the noises, nothing ever came to my mind. Because it's been so many months since me and her encountered it that I didn't think. It didn't even come to my mind. Actually, me and her never even talked about it after that night, I don't think. You know, so I'm there, and I'm not finding anything in this spot. And I'm like, I need to already have been home. It's night, you know, and it's around, I would say, between 10 and 11:30. I can't really pinpoint it. But it was dark, pitch black. So I'm at this location where the noises started with me and her before. Now, when me and her was there the first time, the noises did not start while we was on the bank. And we hung out kind of on the bank for several minutes. And we only heard the noises as I got into the water and walked 20 feet out into the water to the sandbar, which took me about 3/4 of the way to where the trees were moving. And we're looking at a 120-foot gap, and I walked not even a third of that with her, and we started hearing noises. So the second time, I get to that same spot, and I start hearing noises, the same thing. So immediately, it came back to memory. I'm like, oh man, I remember now what me and her went through. And she wasn't here with me, you know, and I told myself, don't worry about it. And I decided that there was nothing else there, and so I was going to go out deeper into this sandbar, which takes you closer across the river, which takes you closer to them. So the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm hearing the same noises, and I can't get it out of my head, and I had this, like, fear that came over me. But being a Christian, you know, I don't live in fear, and I'm not scared, but that's the first time in my life, I think the only time I actually stopped what I was doing and prayed on the spot for a certain answer right then and there, because I needed peace, because I felt like something was watching me. I felt, you see what I'm saying? I just felt unnerved. And I recall it being so because I've never actually stopped and prayed that God protect me, because usually I just have faith. You know, I'll say it in my heart and move on. But it actually made me stop moving and look around, and that made me more paranoid, so I quit looking and I prayed about it, and then I moved on. So I continued to go further, and as I get about halfway to them, now I'm looking at about, 60 feet or something away from them instead of 120. The first one took off flying out of the tree. And I would say the tree was 60 feet tall to the top of it, and around the movement of where we were seeing the trees moving. And then this time, too, I seen the trees, heard the same noises. But only until I kept walking towards them, I had to overcome the fear to even walk towards them, because I previously prayed. So I knew I was walking into something that could be a wolf or a coyote or ravens, or, I've had eagles swoop down on me because they were territorial, some type of hawk, and it tried attacking me, But I knew that these weren't hawks, because the previous encounter, how it came back to mind, I remembered everything me and her went through. So basically, now I'm in the middle of the sandbar. So once I hit the sandbar, the first one flew out of the tree, and I'm talking about it shoved the tree and moved the tree, and I could tell that there was still noise coming from the tree, and I immediately seen this creature, and I wouldn't even call it a creature, I would call it definitively a pterodactyl. And the reason I say that is because I'm quoting what the history books saying what they look like, and I didn't know anything what they look like. The only reason I came up with the name pterodactyl was I told a friend 2 days later, and he said, sounds like a pterodactyl. He pulled it up, researched it first, and then he showed me a picture, and I said, that's it, and I kept pointing at it, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy, and so now I get halfway into the sandbar, and the first one swoops out of the tree, and I'm thinking massive. I took a stance like you're going to get into a fight, and then I would say 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. 3 more came out of the tree, and I'm not definitive. I want to say 3 to 4. So the first one took off almost like a scout, like it took off first. And then I'm watching that one, and I do like a quarter of a spin looking through the moonlight, and I could see it clear as day because it was so black, and you could see the silhouette of it, and it was very easy, and it was only 60 feet above my head at a 45-degree angle over a river where there was no debris in the way. And as it crossed the river, about 3 seconds went by, and 3 more come out of the tree, single file. And once I noticed there was more coming out of the tree, and I knew the direction the first one came in, I easily looked back right to where they was coming, and they almost, when they come out, they look heavier, not, like David said, not agile. They basically almost fall to the ground and disappear, and then they reappear. So it's like they're so heavy or not agile, they come to the ground, and then that loud burst, you can hear the flaps of their wings like a leathery snap. And that's another thing David said. I knew he was telling the truth, according to me, because the only way I could describe it is using the same words, is that it was like leather. And it was so black. It was black. So the first one that took off, I noticed it almost disappeared and it came up. Like it had to get a couple flaps in to gain height. And as it went up, I looked at it a good 3 seconds. For like 1 second, the noise come out. I seen something, a big mass, and then it reappeared because it took flight. I understood that it was some creature, and I knew it wasn't a bird, or a bird for that matter, with no feathers at all. You could just understand that it was reptilian-like. Okay, so now when it strode with its wings, so what I mean is when it flapped its wings, it tilted its head down. So as the wings out extended, not coming in towards its body, but when they went out, its head went down. And that's when you seen like a 2-foot spike coming out of the back of its head, almost like a beak to one of them large birds where they got orange beaks.
Right.
I think they're pink cranes or something, but way more massive than a crane. It was like a V, a real long, skinny V, about 2 feet long, 8 inches across, and I'm way guessing on that because it's so far away, but what I'm saying is it was huge. So as the wings were out, like, and then coming back in, it would tilt his head down. And then when it tucked its wings in to get a burst, it would tilt its head back, or the other way around. And by doing that motion, you could see how the spike come out of the back of its head and reflect in the moonlight. And then when it tucked its wing in to stroke another flight, it would poke its head up. Yeah. So I seen the spike on the top and the back and the feet. There's another thing David mentioned that as well is identical to what I seen was you've seen little things dangling and it was clearly identifiable. There were 2 of them and it was feet. And I don't think you could see bird feet in the dark that far away. You know what I mean? You just won't be able to make out feet. You'll be able to make out a silhouette of wings. And that's about it. And so these feet were big enough for me to tell they was feet. Yeah. And they was almost like attached to the body. Yeah. As like David said, I couldn't, so that took about literally 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, maybe 4 1,000, and then the rest of them came out of the tree, and I looked back, and those did the same exact motion and things that the first one did, and they was all just the same. As far as, I can't give any description other than the darkest silhouette. So the shape of the beak was identical to the back of the head. So when my friend looked it up and showed me the picture, that's immediately why I pinpointed it, because of the way the double beak was or whatever. I don't even understand. So I never thought pterodactyl until my friend was mocking me almost about it. Right. Okay, so that was the second encounter.
But you seen them in the tree, right?
No, the movement of the trees, and you just knew and understood that whatever was in that tree, it was just too much for the tree. It was like, a bird like will move a leaf in the tree or something, or a tiny twig that's off the branch, but it won't like sway the tree or move the whole branch, and you won't have the impression that 5 full-grown men are climbing jungle gym in the top of a tree in the middle of the night. That's what it sounded like, and compiled with the gurgling noises. Right. So the first night when my fiance was with me, she kept saying that, listen to that noise. Something's out there. That's like a gargling noise. And so the first mention of the gargling come from her, which almost verified it to me, because I never mentioned gargling. I thought of it in my head. So when I don't know if she mentioned it later. I'd have to ask her once we got home. I was like, what did it sound like to you? And I think she mentioned gargling, and that's when I verified it with her. I said, I agree. It was like a gargling, almost like a Jurassic Park reptile, like they have it exactly in the movies, like it,
So it wasn't a watery kind of. It was kind of like that that gargling type sound whenever the scene where like their face is close to you. Okay.
What's that?
So on some of the scenes in Jurassic Park, they have if the head's close and they're trying to hide or whatever, you know, and they
Uh-huh.
like stick their head forward and it goes or something. It's a weird
Okay,
gargly.
I can see why it might make that noise. Yeah. Okay, so the wings now, when you could tell almost like the body was, it wasn't huge around like you would think, like, so it's not like a dragon or something. It's big, and I would say it's 13 feet, and it's not a bird, so I wouldn't classify it as a dragon. I would say it's more so a pterodactyl. It's long and narrow, almost like a torpedo. So when it extends its wings, you can see the width of the wingspan, the length of the body, which is about 13 by 13 or something crazy. And there was a tail, some type of tail. I think you can't really make it out though, the tail, but you could tell that there was something there, and that the feet were part of the body. But the most revealing thing to me was when it brought its wings into its body and tilted its head. What was it, up? It became like a submarine, and then just in a flash, it sprung its wings down, tilted its head, and now you see the spike in the back. And it was just like a repeated motion, you know. And if you hypothetically would watch it fly through air, it would just keep doing that, and it would make that double beak. And it almost, to me, it looks like a protection tool. Like if something attacks it above it, a bigger bird or something, it'll get stabbed by flying down on it, and then it can use its mouth one to attack things.
Right.
So it's like a tool.
Yeah.
So that was the same location as the first encounter. The first one I was with my fiance, and the second one I was by myself. I didn't go back for the longest time at night. I think I only been back once, and I just was real uncomfortable about it. And since then, I discovered, well, the first I'll tell the third one. The third time was recently, I would say, like a month ago or something like that, before it snowed here. So anyway, I'm walking about 5 blocks from where I live now, and basically I'm coming across the bridge that goes across that river, and I'm walking, and ever since then I've been paying attention. If I walk by there or drive by there, I'm constantly looking at the air instead of the ground. I'm looking at the ground and the air now. Go figure. So I see. Sure enough, man, I couldn't believe it. I seen the same type of apparition, but maybe 500, 1,000 feet away. So, and it was just dark. I would say 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It's been dark only. And now where this bridge is at, that's like the outskirts of town, and that portion of the river has been claimed by the city pretty much. And there's just like hiking trails and things that go along the river. A lot of it's inaccessible. A lot of it's dumps. There's a couple deer farms along it, you know, for 10, maybe 15 miles to the next town actually. And there's a railroad track that cuts through a bunch of the swamps. So this thing was flying over those woods, and where I seen it flying, I would say it was about a mile from where I had the other encounters. Same neighborhood, same setting, same time of the night, just kind of within a 4-hour period, but it was months apart. So that third time convinced me. I didn't tell nobody but my woman, because nobody wanted to. You know, once I got made fun of, to be honest with you, a couple times, I quit talking about it. So the third encounter was visually and walking down and just randomly looking over. Well, not randomly, because I'm actually looking for it, you know, but it was a random event how I ended up walking across that bridge that night. I think I was walking home and wasn't supposed to be there.
Right.
You know, so I seen it flying. So I think it was hunting. I think it may live in the area. And so the only reason I come to those conclusions is because I researched it afterward. And I got inspired by my friend, because, you know, he seemed to not necessarily mock me, but he wouldn't help me research it or get a camera to go out there and look, because I wanted to try to prove it. So one thing I wanted to know was the kind of the terrain. And after I researched it, I made a few connections, I think, between all these sightings in Puerto Rico and Truno, England, in Texas and New Jersey. Whatever one seemed to be legitimate, I think the connection between them is active fault lines or subduction zones, or old calderas, which are underground, you know, magma chambers or sinkholes or things like that, abnormal terrain. which would be called ultramafic terrain because of these fault lines. So Truno, Puerto Rico, there's a third one that definitely all, I think the connection is the land terrain that they live in. And two, I think it's possible that there has to be evidence if that's true. So when you look into the history, what geologists know about them or paleontologists or whatever is that they associate them with volcanoes. If you learn about them, you're going to learn that they usually live by rivers, and this is from paleontologist perspective or whatever. The people that study, fossils or whatever, they tell us that they live by rivers, pterodactyls. They ate fish and small mammals, and they could actually take up deer and things like that. They grow to like 20 feet long. Some of them they could be from 3 feet to 20 feet, and the pterodactyl, and then it turns into more of a dragon after that height. They can breathe underwater. Some people say they can breathe fire like the dragons did, and they can live really long periods of time without eating. How they know all that, I don't know, but it seems to fit. And if they associate them with volcanoes like they do in the school books and stuff, when they teach about dinosaurs, there's usually a volcano in the background, so it's like they're telling us a clue. And I think that clue needs to be utilized, and the dots need to be connected to see if these pterodactyl sightings are associated with known areas of kimberlite pipes or fault lines, which will provide them a home underground, not something they had to dig out. Right. And in this area, along that river, there seems to be huge holes along the river that go into clay. And you could sit there and kneel over and hold your knees and look in these holes, and you can tell it's not from a beaver, because the beaver, it's like a 20-inch car tire, a rim, 20 inches across. There's these holes, and they're perfectly smooth. So I wondered one day if this thing if something was slipping out of here like a snake, and then it could fly, because I'm going over all these thoughts, and I waded parts of this river, and I couldn't locate another hole outside of this area where I've had the numerous encounters. So I tried to narrow it to that area. Maybe I lucked out and found where they fly at, because I don't see them flying hundreds of miles a night. I think they hunt in a radius like wolves or something.
Right.
So I believe these holes may be associated with them going underground and coming out, and the fact that it's clay allows them to do that. So I found this particular hole, thought it might be something like a den, basically, for them, and I collapsed it. And the very next day I went back, and there was a perfect made hole again in the clay, and so something's coming in and out of that hole. And I get this feeling about it, and the hole is pretty much right where I had the encounter. It's just something like, right. So should I talk about the wolves as well, or?
Yeah, because I think that the wolf thing, especially the prints, and you thought that maybe even it had an extra claw. They were really huge.
Okay.
Because Michigan's known also for the Michigan Dogman thing, and the Dogman a lot of times are seen running on fours, and that's what you were seeing. And I just don't feel like the southern area that you're in is wolf territory, or maybe I don't know. But the wolf thing is kind of suspicious to me. And what you described, where you had a feeling that something was watching you, is more of a dogman type thing. I don't know if a pterodactyl can do that to you, but you had that feeling. I mean, whenever was anyone out somewhere and a dog looked at them and they got a bad feeling like they had to pray? Or, if you go to the zoo and the monkey looked at you and you had to pray, or the lion, regular animals don't seem to cause somebody to have a feeling that is foreboding and like they might be dying anytime soon. So either the pterodactyl was able to do that, or maybe you just was subconsciously picking up on there's something very odd, and maybe the encounters before that all added up to, subconsciously you didn't realize why you had such a feeling. But I don't know. It just seems I just think maybe you encountered some wolves, maybe that are running with the dog man or something like that. But the Michigan dog man is that's one of the hot areas, and I have stories from northern Kentucky, that I've interviewed myself, and so I don't know, the dog man thing and those prints sound kind of odd to me. Like you maybe have something else going on in the area, and maybe you did see some wolves, but I think that maybe there was something else in that area that you were encountering too. So yeah, go ahead. Are you there? Sorry about that. We got cut off. Yeah, go ahead and tell about the wolves.
Okay. So let me guess. I mean, when it was, I would say it was September of this year, early September. Yeah, I want to say September. It might have been October. Okay, so it's my old lady goes to work, and she works first shift, and I had her drop me off. We share the same car. I don't have a license, and so I was utilizing, and I could really mention more about why I'm so vehement about going to this location, but it has nothing to do with really researching what we're talking about now, but has more so to do with minerals and fossils. And so I utilized the ride this particular morning and got dropped off. And the sun rises about 6:45 at this time, and I get there about 5:20. Have my coffee. I'm walking down these railroad tracks, which is the same vicinity within a mile radius or whatever of where these pterodactyls were. And as I'm walking, I decided to sit over and pick out of this cliff. And I wouldn't call it a cliff. I'd call it like a 10-foot embankment where the side is eroded away and is exposing minerals and rocks. And so I'll go through there, and there's certain locations along the river and rock hounding, that I zero in on. So as I'm sitting here having my coffee, waiting for the sun to come up, I'm like laying on the side of the hill. Okay, so the railroad tracks is about 10 feet away from me, maybe 15. So I'm halfway up a 10-foot hill at like a 45-degree angle or something, laying on it, having coffee, using this flashlight to pick through rocks. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that's what I was doing. So I always knew if somebody came up on me, or if anybody, you could hear somebody coming over the railroad tracks, because in order to get on the tracks, you have to walk up these rocks that are on railroad tracks. They're kind of big rocks, and to get up on the track, you have to walk up about a 4-foot incline. And if you don't jump right, the rocks will like avalanche and slide down, and it makes a lot of noise. So about 20 minutes after I get there is when this happened. About 45 minutes before sunup. So these wolves would have been going back to their den because it was the end of their night, and which is another sign that they're hiding out in the same environment. Okay, so I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, everything's fine, and all of a sudden I hear rocks tumbling down the side of the railroad track, like something stepped on them, and it was of great weight, and I just knew it was a person. Which, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I heard it click. I just knew it was a person, and that's why I was clueless. I was like, why would somebody be out here, And so I looked one way down the railroad tracks and kind of through the weeds in the woods, which was, if I'd have continued to climb up the 10-foot hill, I'd have been in some woods, and then there's like a deer trail, and it went down into the river, the woods that go into the river. And so I didn't see nothing that when I immediately flung the flashlight back my way, and I got a really nice flashlight, and it's real bright. And I would say the tracks is 15 feet straight behind me, and then so they was 15 feet behind me and about 30 feet down the track to the left. And once I swung back the other direction, I hit them right in their face. And what I didn't mention was I heard the first set, and you could tell it was like one individual, one deer or one thing that came up and knocked the rocks down, and then immediately after, like seconds later, I heard more, but it was a second. Well, not more, it was two of them. So when I flung back and hit him in the spotlight, I immediately froze because I recognized that it's two what I immediately thought was wolves. And being in these environments along railroad tracks, and I grew up in the woods and things like that, by the woods, you know. I've always not been familiar with coyotes, but I have actually had them follow me one time down the railroad, and I just throw rocks at them, and they're like the size of little tiny dogs. Even the biggest one was like maybe 15 inches tall or something to its head. Their head was real small. They looked more like a fox, and they're gray, and they're easy. They run in packs, and I've never encountered them any other way around here, and they are around here. So I knew immediately that it was wolves, two of them, wolves without a doubt. But I wasn't convinced they was wolves, and to this day I'm not. And I'm not comfortable with calling them wolves. And everybody that knows this story, I'll make that point. Is that the point is that about 30 feet away, their eyes glowed a yellowish green, and they was huge, like they was round, more round than you would see a wolf. And I've referenced dozens of pictures. And I'm trying to settle my mind, and I can't find a picture of wolf's eyes at night that meet that. And then I've looked at wolves in the day, wolves in the night, wolf videos, Are Wolves Dangerous? I mean, dozens of hours I've spent into this just trying to come to peace with what I've seen. So the first thing I know about them, there was two of them standing side by side. They was identically about a foot apart, and they both was hunched over, and I would say that 4 feet tall was the top of their head, even when they had their head punched over. So I immediately spring up off the hill, but I don't move. And I kind of just sit up in case they come towards me or try to attack me or something. And they sat there with their head down, focused intently on me. And another thing about their eyes was they were spaced far apart, like 4 inches or more. And the fact that they were so big around, and you could see the silhouette of their hair sticking up on their neck, and their hair looked real thick, and I can't put a color to it. It wasn't black, wasn't white, it wasn't gray. It was like a black, gray, brown. Huge. It was just huge. And I swear to you, my Holy Spirit, I shined that light on them for about 30 seconds, and it was like a standoff. And I didn't move. Was shocked. I didn't know what I was looking at. The eyes was something I'd never seen. Of course, I've never seen wolves though. So I don't know if that's normal or not. I don't know if it was. I know I've heard about the Dogman and stuff, and the only similarity I can say to that is it nothing fits to be a wolf. And when they took off running, okay, so they come up from the other side of the tracks, and I was on. So when they come up on the tracks, they're crossing over to come to my side, and I don't think they knew I was there. But if they have this keen scent, why would they not know I was there? You know, and so too, when they decided to take off running, they almost like leapt. They didn't like run. They like ran. They like it was weird. And I couldn't have compared this to the Dogman. You mentioned this earlier to me, and it was the first time I heard it, that the Dogman walks and runs or has been known to do both or something like that. And that's almost like an answer to me, because I feel like it ran.
Yeah, well,
but it also like it was out of my flashlight before I knew it, you know. And the last thing I thought was that was weird. On top of everything else being weird about them, and it all happened in about literally 30 seconds, which is a long time. And it wasn't like 20 seconds. It was about 30, 35 seconds. So now they're on my side. Now I stand up all the way, and I know there's a deer trail right above this little mound I'm on, just 10 feet over the mound. And I heard leaves, and so I knew that they was on that trail, and then I didn't hear no noise. So I knew that they could come right over this hill. So what I did was ran down the hill, scuttled down the hill, ran up the rocks, got onto the railroad track, reached over, and I'm facing the direction they're at. I don't have my back to them. And I grabbed a couple of rocks off the railroad, and was trying to figure out how to hold my flashlight and have a rock in each hand in case they decide to attack me. And then I kept my face to that side of the woods, and I walked down the railroad track, went way out of my way, and canceled my whole day over the whole ordeal. And so that was my only encounter of the wolves until 2 days ago. Now, 2 days ago, I was out, and I was seeing if it was possible to look for specimens in this type of weather because there's snow and ice on the ground. And it hasn't really snowed, but a week ago it snowed and sleeted and rained and froze all in a 24-hour period in Lower Michigan where I'm at. And to this very day, my feet are outside of my home encapsulated in the snow from that night. And they look just as they did 7 days ago when I left it outside my door. So the same is true with these footprints that I have about 15 pictures of. Okay, so the railroad track I seen the wolves on was within under an eighth of a mile from where I've seen the pterodactyls. And I, told people, and everybody kept trying to tell me it was coyotes, and they're not out here. I don't really have people that believe in the work that I do, and the ones that do, they're not really involved. So even if I told them, they're trying to convince me of something normal, and I'm not buying it, man. I've seen it. So
yeah.
I'm about a half a mile down from where these two wolves were at when I had a face-to-face encounter with them, and this was 2 days ago. So we're looking at 4 or 5 months went by. It was late summer when I encountered them. So I'm not thinking about wolves or nothing. I'm out to see if the snow covered up all my areas where I like to go for my hobby. So sure enough, I'm coming back down this railroad track, and there's like a road off the railroad track, and then there's like a 2-track, and then there's like a bike track. It's throughout this area, and then there's woods, and then there's the river, and then on the other side of the river there's more woods, and it just goes on and on. So I'm walking down the side of the railroad track about a little under half a mile from that morning where I encountered them, on the same side of the railroad tracks that they came over from. To get back to where I believe is their home. So I think I was by their den when I encountered them. So I'm walking down, and I'm slipping everywhere because everything is frozen. The road's froze, the woods are froze. You're literally, I fell down several times walking through the woods because the woods is an ice skating rink. It was kind of ridiculous. So I'm trying to not fall down walking down the side of this railroad track. And the pictures I have are of prints. And I was amazed. I was happy. I was smiling. I took pictures, got my phone out. I think I got some video of it. Was talking to the camera because this is my evidence of there's wolves and not coyotes, because the pictures show 2 tracks that go about 80 feet. They seem to come out of nowhere. Actually, I didn't track them backwards. I tracked them forward because you can tell the direction they're going. So I'm picturing these 2 tracks with the phone, and what they are of is, like in one of the pictures, I got my hand balled in a fist right next to the imprint, and the imprint is bigger than my fist, and I'm a 34-year-old man, and basically it was the whole size of my fist and a little bit bigger, and there was claw marks coming out of it, and you could see when it stuck its hand in the snow this night before it froze, and it brought, not its hand, its paw. And when it brought its paw out, its claws raised the snow up with it. Okay? And its back foot always met with the front foot. So it walked in a uniform, every footprint was identical to the last one. And both tracks were the same. And the claws and the size and everything is there to match a wolf. And that actually helped me convince my friends that they're telling me I need to be careful now. So instead of making fun of me, as a friendly joke, they now, I think they believe it as well because they've seen the pictures. So right next to the footprint is encapsulated in the snow, to me, is evidence of coyote tracks. And you could tell it's coyotes, they're little paw prints, and you could count the pads on their feet, and then you could Google paw print of a coyote, and it'll show you the paw print, and you can match it up, and it's identical. So I crossed that off the list, and then when you look up a wolf print in the snow, it's in comparison to the size, and the only difference is there seems to be an extra nail in my picture, and you could clearly see it, and somehow I'd like to email you those pictures and what you decide to do with them.
Okay. Well, I got an idea why that extra nail is there.
What's that?
I think I have an idea why the extra nail is there. I think it's the front paw, and I think it's a hand. It's not a paw. Because that's a thumb. I think you encountered Dogman, dude. I really do. And I think when you were there where the pterodactyls were, the foreboding feeling that you got. When have you ever went to a zoo and maybe the tiger or something looked at you and you felt like you need to pray, or the zebra looked at you,
Exactly.
or, you know what I'm
And
saying?
I don't think that God said that. I don't know if I told you that earlier or mentioned that here now, but that's a good point because I feel I have a strong relationship with Jesus, and I haven't my whole life. At 25, I started believing in Christ because He called me. I didn't call Him. He saved me out of some things, and He set my life straight, and I'm thankful. And I've always been strong. I've read the Bible. I understand. I know I'm a sinner. All these things, and I I feel my faith is strong, and I don't like saying that because I feel like I'm boasting, but I try to encourage people to have strong faith. If they're sick, I tell them it's going to be better to pray to Jesus, to do all this stuff. And never has anything shook my boots where I stopped digging in the water, stood up, felt hairs on my neck, had to face the fear of turning around and feeding into the devil, or whatever it was that I felt was watching me. And I stood up, and my hands are dripping wet, and it was like 11 at night, and I said, in my heart, to protect me, Lord, and to make sure that I don't, nothing happens to me, and if it does, I pray that it's your will, and I'll accept it then, but I need peace right now, because I really feel like a coward, I felt like my faith kept me alive in other situations where I didn't waver, but so this brought me to a point where I had to bless my surroundings. Yeah. And I think there was another time where I said, "Peace be unto you," to the woods. And I stuck my hand up because I felt, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if the pterodactyl can do that to you. But I know the dogman stuff, that happens. That is the most common thing you hear about the dogman encounters is that before they ever even see it, or the dog man will be over there in the woods watching them, and they have a feeling, and then they end up seeing it a little bit later. But I think that extra claw might be the front paw, because they do run on all fours a lot. Now, when you saw these wolves, did it look like you said it looked like they were about 4 foot high, even with the head down, but did it look like that the back, if you were to look at the front of the wolf and the back of the wolf, did it look like there was a slant kind of upward toward the front?
Yeah, the head was more upward and the tail was down, or the back was down, and I actually couldn't get a good view, you know what I mean? Because they were side by side and they was kind of facing me straight on at an angle, so at the same time, because I'm off the track and they're on the track. And so they was kind of facing like a train would, but slightly to the right. And their head was down, and I could see in between the hairs. And what I noticed too was the thickness of the hair must have been thick for me to pick out individual hairs from that distance at night. Their fur must have been real thick. And I want to say I even smelled something, like they brought a smell with them.
Okay, and what now on the hair, when the moonlight or the flashlight and all that hit the hair, did it look like the tips of the hair maybe had a little white sheen to it?
I would say goldish.
Goldish, okay.
Remember we was talking about the color, and I was trying to say a black, brown, like gold.
Right.
But I don't know. But they came to the hair. It wasn't like hair. It was more like a matted or something, because the hair was so thick, it almost formed pyramid points or something like that. Like it wasn't hair, but it was like a matted or something.
Now on the ears, what did the ears look like? Stick straight up, out to the side, or on top of the head? Anything?
No, they was. That gave more definition to how far spaced their eyes were apart. I don't know if I mentioned it. Their eyes seemed like they was like 4 inches apart, and I couldn't understand how a simple dog, or even if it was a big wolf or something, their nose, nostril had to be so wide to cause that separation, and the fact that they was round, you would think that this wolf would squint its eyes, lower its head, and pierce his eyes at you it would give you half the eyes of what I seen, and the eyes were like a goldish greenish color, like a hologram. I mean,
wow,
like deers and raccoons' eyes, they glow like a greenish. These were like a golden hologram type. And when they took off, they
so basically amber, the amber color.
Ran funny.
So the eyes were basically an amber color.
Right.
Okay, well, see,
yeah,
that's a dog.
Goldish amber, I would say.
Yeah, with a greenish tint to it. That's common too.
What's that?
That color of the eyes is what people say that they almost always see. Now when if the creature was standing there, the shoulders were higher than the butt. Is that right?
I would say not by much, if it was at all, because what all my mind was captivated on was the head bent, and the thickness of it, the height of it. It totally overpowered your senses, where you didn't want to look at it. You was kind of fixated on its eyes, and how. So I pretty much seen like probably half down the body from like almost an aerial view, because I'm on the side of that cliff, level with the tracks. Because now, in order to get on the tracks, you got to walk up like a 4-foot rocky thing to get on the tracks. But I'm halfway up a 10-foot cliff, so I'm actually parallel with them, even though I shouldn't be, because I'm halfway up a hill. So I'm like eye to eye with them, and I pictured myself definitely 100%. If I was on the tracks next to them, their head at that height, bent over like it was, would be at my hip, and I'm 6'2", and it would be right at my hip bone, not below it, above it really. It would be. So I picture if it stuck its head all the way up, it would be like at my belly button or something like that, and that's like a couple 100-pound wolf or something. And so when it took off running, I was left dumbfounded, because I can't give a proper description of it, because it didn't run like a dog like you would see a wolf or a dog or a coyote. It didn't run away like that. Yep, that was definitely, you could see it in full stride, like you would identify it. And the lighting was there.
So when it ran away, did it kind of almost like bound, like it was like leaping more from the back feet?
And yeah, definitely. And that's what I was pointing out to you earlier, is that when it ran, it didn't like run like a dog. I'm almost convinced
like a gorilla.
Walked, ran like it used paws. And it may have to do with that extra claw or something like that. Why I don't know.
Okay, so like when you see a gorilla run, if you see a gorilla run where it uses its back feet, it's running kind of on that, but it also is putting its hands on the ground and it's kind of loping. Is that kind of what it looked like?
Yep, definitely. That's more like it took off. And remember when I said it walked up on the tracks? If you picture a wolf or a coyote or anything out hunting and doing what it does, that thing is stealth. You know what I mean? They're one of the best predators. They stalk things like lions. You don't know they're there until they get you. And somehow these things just crumble rocks down the tracks, not caring about who hears them. Or they're just too bulky and heavy to avoid being quiet on those type of rocks. Now, when I was stalked by coyotes, I was walking on a railroad track, and I didn't even know they was behind me. This is a totally different incident, different place, that was way years ago. But there was a group of coyotes on either side of the track. It was like 4 or 5 on each side of the track, 20, 30 feet behind me, and they was making all these noises, almost like, a monkey or something, but they're like whiny,
Yeah.
And they like howl back and forth, trying to intimidate me, and I threw rocks at them and stuff, and they took off. And so it was totally different.
Well, that's very interesting, man. I tell you, that's very interesting, because I really feel like you encountered the dogman of Michigan Dogman, and they a lot of times will be on all fours, but yeah, a lot of the stuff you say. Can you send me the pictures of the footprints? I'd like to see that extra claw thing.
I definitely can. I would like
Okay.
to do that because I would. To be honest with you, if I don't get help with this stuff, it'll probably go under the table, and I'm not going to really focus on it because
Oh, this ain't going to go under the
dealing with
table.
people, I can't fight through all these people's doubts. I'm just wore out by a lot of stuff right now with my other hobby and with this. But if I can have some help, maybe if I send you the pictures, and I think you'll do something with them. And I haven't researched them in depth. It might be a normal print. I compared the prints to the woman on the beach where she was trying to locate these wolves in a different country, and because they're rare over there and they want to make sure they don't go extinct. So part of the program was Hot on the Wolf's Trail is what it was called or something.
Yeah.
And it showed the footprints coming out of the wet sand. And this would be the same scenario of them coming out of the sleet snow that night before it froze. Its claw was like 2 inches. I swear it was easily 2 inches long, each one of them, and it raised the snow up like a little mountain coming out of the paw print.
See, that's awfully big for a wolf. I mean, that's a big claw, man. That's more Dogman like. What you described to me sounds like a Dogman. If you would,
I would like to know too that before you, I didn't even think about Dogman. To be honest with you, I have to admit now I am, and I'm excited about it because it. Now that you tell me what you're telling me and other people are seeing that, I definitely won't cross that out because I'm not convinced it was a wolf yet, and I don't think I will be unless I see it again.
Oh, they can walk on, they can run on back feet.
I wouldn't even know what to say to you if I was making this up because I never looked up the Dogman. So, like you said, the eyes seem the same. My story matches.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was able to tell you guys the story without been able to read into it. Remember I said I haven't even watched your videos on the Dogman yet because I just became familiar with you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if my story matches or not. I'm eager to see.
There's a lot of it that does. That's for sure, man. I think in the area matches too. So what I'll tell you this.
Right.
Send me the pictures of those prints, but we'll be talking, and maybe I'm gonna have to come up, and we're gonna have to try to catch those pterodactyls, and maybe
Definitely.
even look around at the Dogman thing there. That might be something we might have to do.
I believe there's a certain part of this track, railroad track. There's like you can tell they did stonework, mason work, and built a little tunnel for a creek to go through it, which is now dried up. Now, I ventured by there but didn't go near it because there's a hole. Okay, so you know how wide a double railroad track is, and so you're down like on the edge of a river, and literally it's a 20-foot hill to the side of the track of this particular area, and that's where they decided to cut a path under the railroad so the water could go into the railroad probably back in 1940. I could probably find out when. But nonetheless, it's old, it's out of commission. Some of the stonework's falling off. It looks like a New York tunnel made out of stone, but it's only, I'd say, 8 feet wide, 12 feet tall. It only goes through the earth under the track about 30 feet deep across. You can see the other side of the railroad track, you know. But I've never ventured to go through it, all that I do, because it's filled with water. There's like a railroad tie into there, and then there's a hole that goes into the concrete, and the hole is about the size of, I'd say 3 feet tall. It's about 3 feet across, and it's actually like bricks that fell out of the wall. And I just get this feeling that where I had seen the wolf with the flashlight was 20, 30 feet away from there.
Mm.
You know, literally, like if they was crossing to go right down there, and I think they live there. I think I know where their den is.
Well, let me tell you this, man. We're kind of.
I can't venture in there by myself. I don't want to, you know.
I'm gonna have to wrap the show up for this episode, but we're gonna be talking on the side here. And now, if you go out there and you encounter these things, don't mess with them. If they're a Dogman, you don't want to mess with them. Now, don't take off running. But yeah, just ease away from it because the Dogman's not no joke. And pray for sure, because I know people that have encountered them and they prayed and they was able to leave. But they calmly left and walked away. But they are predators.
It's almost like the Holy Spirit brought me to that point because I needed that. and maybe it wasn't me praying, because the Holy Spirit inspires us to pray what we pray to begin with.
Right. Yeah.
And for some reason, I was so captivated that maybe the Holy Spirit knew right then and there that I did need protection.
Right.
So, well, I'm sorry for taking up all the time and not letting you talk. I feel like I talked a lot.
Oh no, you're supposed to talk.
I do appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I talk too much sometimes when I interview people. I'm supposed to let you do the talking.
Right.
But anyway, I'll be talking to you, man. And send me those, send the pictures, and I'll be talking to you more. So we can believe that, and we may have to work out something to come up there and try to catch these pterodactyls and see what you can figure out about it, where you think they might be. Get a topographical map, and we won't give the location away, if we talk any more about it. But we may have to have you come back on, and we'll investigate this a little bit, and I'll help you with it. All right.
Okay, I really appreciate it. And I'll send them to the email I first contacted you in.
Well, yeah.
And I'll do that tonight because it takes a couple minutes. Might as well get them to you right now.
All right.
And,
well, I appreciate that,
I'll be waiting
man.
to hear from you then.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'll holler at you tomorrow, man. And I appreciate it, Joshua from Michigan. God bless you, man, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. And all you out there,
thank you very much.
And okay, thank you. All y'all out there in YouTube land, hope you enjoyed that. Pterodactyls and possible Dogman sounds like to me a very interesting location. Another one of those Diana type locations where she seems to have activity going on. We might have to go check it out. All right. Thank you all for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And if you want to contribute, you can go to Facebook Mysteries to Search. There's a donate button. Or you can use my email, brentonson@gmail.com, to go to my PayPal, and that always helps me to bring these kind of stories to you on a regular basis. God bless, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.